Hi, I'm Cody Jeffries, DJ from Jewel 98.5 in Ottawa, Canada, and you're watching NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Hey guys, Larry Becker here. I am thrilled to be back on the stage because I have a great panel of three guests, and we're going to be talking about cameras and gadgets and gear. And in fact, the three people that I'm about to introduce will spend a little bit of time with Steve Manios, John Humphrey, and James Edershaw. Let me start with Steve Manios. Steve Manios Jr. was literally born into the business. From an early age, Stephen spent his summers training under his father, Stephen Manios Sr., owner of Century Precision Optics. Now, beginning in 1981, Stephen became a full-time lens technician at Century Precision Optics, where he later advanced to service manager and ultimately worked in the sales department. In 91, though, Stephen founded SteeMan Inc., now Manios Digital Film. It's a distributor of high-end film and video products that are made abroad, but often utilized in the United States. Since then, SteeMan has established itself as a direct link between foreign manufacturers and the United States, and he's been instrumental in introducing many products to the domestic market. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Steve Manios.
Thank you.
Now, I also want to introduce our other guests. And let me move on here because I know that we've got it a little bit off in the prompter. So I'm going to go ahead and move ahead and introduce John Humphrey. John Humphrey is the Vice President of Business Development at Hitachi. John has spent most of his life in television, engineering, operations, sales, and systems integration. He's personally built multiple mobile trucks and has worked as an EIC in mobile tech television. Over the past 3 decades in video systems, John has developed a deep knowledge of the people, business, and technology across the broadcast and production industry, and his proven track record of his advanced television system sales has enabled him to understand how to pragmatically apply a wide range of sophisticated solutions that help solve both technology and business problems. When we come, that's the end of that part. Sorry about that. And then finally, I also want to introduce my third guest, James. James Edershaw and I had a chance to talk a little bit already. He's the sales director for Shotacue Broadcast Systems from the UK. James is an engineer by training. James began his career in '88 at Radimec EPO, a pioneer in high-end robotic camera systems for live TV and government broadcast applications. In 2006, following the closure of Radimec, he and the core group of the company engineers and management team formed Shotacue UK. Now, this is a wholly owned subsidiary of Shotacue Corporation of Japan. As the sales director, he works with a team of talented and dedicated engineers and designers, and he's helped many in the company to grow. And the company has now grown to a multi-million-dollar business with a worldwide reputation for quality, innovation, and customer service. Okay, that was a lot. Guys, you have incredible credentials, and I am honored to have all three of you here on stage with us today, and we're going to be talking about gear. So if you don't mind, I would like to start first with you, Steve, and give me just a bit about what's going on that you're excited about at the show this year at your booth. People come up and they're saying wow about some things.
Okay. Well, as a distributor, I find products around the world, get the exclusive for. My main line is a company called Cartoni Tripods. This year we just won an award from the SOC, the Society of Operating Cameramen, Lifetime Achievement for the Lambda head.
Great.
Which is an underslung head that's used a lot for tabletop photography, getting scenes at 90 degrees, and used on a jib arm. That being said, we introduced the Lambda 10 for smaller ultra-light 4K cameras, and the Lambda 25, which is for up to 50-pound cameras, where most of your digital cinematography now is in the 40 to 55-pound range. We also introduced a new set of heads called the Focus Series, going from 8 all the way up to 22. A lot of it designed against camera-specific lightweight camera, ENG, and then digital cinematography, or EFP. One of my other lines is Kinotechnic. They make an LED Fresnel light that is small, lightweight, and portable, but the key to it is you can actually control the light from a smartphone application.
Great.
So you can hang the light in 3 different positions, up to 6 lights, control color temperature, and dimmable capability, all from your smartphone.
Is this a Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi connection?
It's Bluetooth. Smartphones with Wi-Fi, you can only work, it only has one Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Bluetooth, you have up to 6 links.
Right, of course.
So now you're able to link 6 lights through Bluetooth.
And you could, what things can you control remotely?
With it, basically the dimming and also the color temperature. It's
Great.
bi-color, so you go from basically 3000 to 6000 K. You can also link lights together. So as
Okay.
an operator, you can be standing behind your subject, behind your camera, looking at your monitor. You have all your lights set up, and just watch the monitor and adjust the lights. 3 hours later, as the sun has been shifting, you can then dim, raise, or adjust your color temperature.
It's the new way to work, and it's a brilliant way to work, no pun intended, because of having that right in your hands and being able to isolate individual lights and control them separately.
Correct, and being practical light, they kind of call it, it's a practical light, because you want to light a scene and you have 2 lamps with you inside a house. You want to match that color of those lamps.
Sure.
It makes it much more easier than running back and forth and making the adjustments.
Okay, I can nerd out on lighting for quite some time, but I don't want to dismiss our other guests at all. And John, I would like to talk to you about some exciting things that are going on at the Hitachi booth. Now, Hitachi is just a household word, of course, but this year here at NAB at the show, you guys have some amazing technology that is really quite the buzz.
Yeah.
And it starts with the number 8. Tell me what's going on, John.
Well, UHD 1 is 4K. UHD 2 is 8K. It has always been part of the roadmap, and Hitachi has been developing 8K with NHK for almost 10 years.
That's incredible.
This is the 4th generation 8K camera. It is a fully functioning, deliverable product that we have in fact delivered to NHK for the upcoming summer games. So this is a real product that has drawn a lot of attention here at the show.
Well, I can see where it would, and I can see where high-end broadcasters who are already fully embracing 4K and craving more see the benefit. But would you help our audience understand a bit about the big deal about 8K? It's much more than just more resolution, because we're at that capacity where the human eye can't detect more. So what other things are being done with the 4K and now the 8K?
Well, the 8K incorporates a high dynamic range and wide color gamut, which we'll get to
Yeah, that's
later.
great.
But obviously it is a huge raster, 16 times larger than high definition. That gives certain interesting possibilities when it comes to post-production. The ability to pan, scan, crop, cut out the image, and do a lot of image manipulation after the fact in post-production. Obviously, when it comes to computer graphics, any kind of manipulation with the video picture, using such a large high-resolution picture offers benefits there.
Sure.
There are other interesting benefits and interesting possibilities with 8K, which include, this is just a possibility, image tracking using telemetry, radar, or image tracking, pixel tracking that is in use today, where you could lock down a single 8K camera on a football field, that's either football or soccer football, and cover the entire game with one camera using a cutout and image tracking. It's just a possibility.
It's incredible, the resolution, and I think it's kind of fun how we all were very excited just a couple years ago to hear 4K, and now we're all clamoring for 8K, and you're delivering at Hitachi. That's tremendous.
The first time I saw HD, I thought that was pretty spectacular. The first
is.
time I saw 4K, I thought that was spectacular. 8K certainly takes it to another level. It feels like 3D.
It does.
Because it has such depth to it.
There's so much you can do with it. So my next question, of course, would follow that I'm going to ask you about 16 and 32K. I'm just kidding.
We've reached the limit of human vision now
Oh,
with 8K, literally. And there is no plan, there's no roadmap to go beyond 8K. That's it.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, and it does until we're, at the limits of what we can do with 8K, and we're at the infancy of discovering what we can do with 8K. Now, James, you and I have had a chance to talk briefly at your booth, and you have some very impressive technology, mount systems, robotics.
Camera support.
Would you tell our folks about what it is that you do? And I know, because I was at your booth, people are coming by and saying, wow.
Yeah,
tell us why.
Are. So at ShotterQ, we are all about camera support. That might be a lightweight tripod with a pan and tilt head, right through studio pedestals, OB pedestals, right into the fully robotic pedestals. So we have two very distinct areas. That is remote control, robotic camera support, and manual. But across both of those, we have the capability to do virtual reality tracking. So the idea is, as the camera's moving, you can track exactly where that camera is, and that applies, as I said, to manual cameras or robotic. So that's it.
Very good. And the types of solutions that you provide are at every level.
Absolutely.
So the end user might be an individual, and the end user can be, of course, major broadcasts.
Right, exactly that. So if you're looking at the tripods and the small heads, that's very often an individual or a small organization, one or two products. But if you take it right through to the studio pedestals, up to the robotics, these are generally large broadcast organizations. Our robotic systems, for example, you could have 32 cameras all controlled from one or two control systems. So it does really cover that whole range, yeah.
Incredible. Now, gentlemen, I'm going to ask you again, well, this order seems to work because we are kind of all in broadcasting, obviously, but in very different spaces.
Right.
And so what I'll ask you is, and maybe we'll start at the far end and come back this time. Tell me something that you're especially proud about in your company. This is called permission to brag.
Okay.
So I want you to brag about something that you're especially proud about. It can be an award. It could be something that you're releasing this year. It could be something that you
Could be all of those things?
It could be all of those things. You can talk about children if you're especially proud there. But if you keep it in the broadcast realm, it'll
well, that's a great question. If you ask me what am I most proud of, and this is going to be a bit of a cliche, but it's the people. I mean, honestly, it is. In our organization, it is all about the people. And we get that feedback. So they love our products, they love what we do with them, but they love the way we support them, they love the way we engage with the clients, engage with the customers. It's not a sale and run, it's very much a lifetime relationship. We released some news this week about our relationship with QVC, for example, which is a very big global customer for us. And it is literally global. Japan, Italy, Germany, UK, and most recently the US. And that's a very long-term relationship. Of course, they love the product. They wouldn't buy it if they didn't like the product, but it's much more than that. And I think that is the thing that brings the best from the company is the people you have. And that's me and that's everybody in the organization. But if you ask me about the products, I mean, at this show, for example, we've really got two key products we're pushing hard. One of them is a new fully robotic pedestal, Smart Ped. It's really nice. It's designed specifically for TV news, sports, live production, where you need high stability, great reliability, simple to operate, and just an all-round great product. On the VR tracking side, I mentioned earlier, we've been doing that kind of thing for many years. ShotterQ is very well known in that market. We make cranes and jibs and heads and heads that track. They have encoders, they track. And that's great, and there'll always be a place for that. But increasingly, people are asking for tracking cameras that might not be on a conventional pedestal or tripod, might not even be on anything, might be on a cameraman's shoulder, might be on a Steadicam. How to track that is a bit of a challenge. So with 3D2, what we're doing is tracking the camera position using external absolute referencing, and that's very exciting. We get a lot of interest in that.
Yeah, and you do have a popular booth here at the show, and I certainly can understand why. John, with respect to Hitachi, let's say you're at a gathering of fellow NAB members, and somebody comes up and says, yeah, I have a Hitachi such and such. Tell me what's interesting at Hitachi these days. What are you most proud of? What kinds of things do you like about it?
It's funny that you say that, because Hitachi is a very large, diversified, global company.
Sure.
And I was just thinking, I have an Hitachi air nailer or something like that, because Hitachi cuts across a lot of markets.
Sure, it does.
As it relates to cameras and the Kokusai division of Hitachi, we manufacture a variety of products, including semiconductor equipment, projectors, and other products, in addition to cameras. In the United States, it's cameras.
Okay.
And we have three divisions. One is the broadcast and professional division that I work for. There's a crucial imaging division, which is the kind of cameras that are used along the U.S. and Mexican border. They are cameras that are used in airports with facial recognition and things like that. And then there's the industrial division, video, which are almost always OEM cameras. You don't see Hitachi on them.
I see. So in your division, where you work in broadcast, what are some of the big things? Did we cover it when I said 8K?
Well, that's just the beginning, Larry. 8K is our sort of breakthrough product here at the NAB.
Sure.
But Hitachi was the first manufacturer to offer a 4K deliverable camera that utilized the 2/3 inch B4 industry standard lens mount.
I see.
What that meant is you could use that camera for sports, utilizing the existing lenses that you have. In many cases, sports lenses cost more than the camera.
Sure.
So being able to reutilize those lenses is very important. And over time, you may wish to upgrade to 4K lenses, which are even more expensive, but you didn't have to in the beginning. So that 4K camera was a real breakthrough. It used 4 imagers, 4 sensors
Sure.
in it, dual green channel to increase the resolution. This year at the NAB, we introduced 2 new sports-oriented products. The first one is the dual cable CCU, which provides both triax and fiber connectivity, meaning if you have it mounted in a mobile truck, it doesn't matter what the venue has, you can connect to it. The cameras come with both triax and fiber head adapters.
Interesting.
So it greatly simplifies the situation for the mobile companies who go into many venues and don't always know what cables are there, what is existing, and what they need to connect to.
That sounds nice, and I appreciate the compatibility with existing lenses. It is indicative then of a company that is not closed-minded, and
Right.
you've got to stay in our ecosystem and there is no other solution. And you're opening the doors and playing nice with the other kids on the playground, and that's what makes a good company. That's terrific. Thank you. Steve, I want to ask you, if you had the opportunity to brag just a little bit, what would you brag about?
Okay, so about my company, I agree with you. It's the people that make my company.
Great.
We're a small family-owned business. Family members work with me, and other people are like family members. We work with groups like Sinclair Group, and one of the things they love is that they call our office. You get a live voice. You get an answer. I'm really proud of the fact that the products we find are high-quality products. Vocus is one of my lines. Map boxes, shoulder rigs. They're up there with the best in the world. Kinotechnic we talked about, and my main line is Cartoni, a family-run business for over 80 years,
Sure.
constantly innovating with new products, new camera support pedestals every year. This year we also introduced I'm talking about cameras and optics, a lot of the old 80s film lenses, the Canons and the Cook zoom lenses won't work on 4K cameras. I now have an optic that will allow you, an expander, to use those on cameras like the Red Dragon and the Arri using it open gate. So you could take these old lenses, zoom lenses, put them on there, get that nice film look, a little bit softer
Right.
glow to them, and it's, I say, 4K for under 3K.
That's great. Now, does it do anything to the light that's coming in?
Good question. You lose a half a stop of light.
Okay.
And the image is only 1.2. So really, you're only going from 25 to 27, 28 millimeters. So you're not losing a lot on the wide angle.
I see. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing is so much of this technology is changing. And what I'm hearing from each of you is respect for existing ownership of gear. Because when we ask people to just rebuy everything all over again from the beginning, that becomes awfully frustrating. So that's pretty crazy. Guys, we are at about 1 minute, so I don't have time. I want to go down a couple of different paths. One of the things that I want to ask you, Steve, and when we come back, if you'll plan for this, I want to talk to you about how you find these products and how you research them. And additionally, how much influence do you have then with the manufacturers to develop, enhance? What kind of feedback are you able to provide? So when we come back from the break, we'll do that. And guys, we are taking a brief break, but there is so much more coming back for you at NAB Show Live. We'll be right back.
This is Ed Evenson, Operations Manager at Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. You're watching the NAB Show live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat. S-Beat.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the live stage here at NAB Show Live. We are partway through a great conversation about gadgets and camera gear and accessories. And my guests today are Steve Manios from Manios Digital, also John Humphrey from Hitachi, and James Ettershaw from the UK at Shotacue. And we're talking about their individual experiences and what they're doing in the industry, and also what their behind the scenes experiences are and things going on here at the booth. And when we left off in the last half hour, I had asked Steve to let us know a little bit about, because you're involved with distribution of gear and acquisition of gear. And it was interesting to me to hear a little bit about working with these overseas companies as you bring gear to the United States to be a distributor. How do you find these people?
You find them several ways. We travel to foreign shows and we find small little companies. A great little sidebar of that, Atomos.
Yeah.
I don't know, about 6-7 years ago, but when a little 10 by 20 booth at IBC.
They're huge here.
And I was like, hey, I'd love to distribute you guys. We went round and round. They went in a different direction. Didn't work out. And then they decided to open up a U.S. office, and look where they are 5-6 years later. They're humongous.
So you predicted.
So yeah, we see these, we see these companies and we try and find them.
Sure.
A lot of them do come to us. We've turned down a lot of companies. We like to cater more to the high-end professional.
Okay.
Cartoni is one of the higher ends when it comes to camera support. Communication-wise, it's very critical between a distributor and a factory. They're depending on me for trends, how our sales going to be, talking to camera manufacturers, finding out what's coming out next. They're also, marketing is a very crucial part of it, because what happens here explodes out to the rest of the world. We also do take them around from the film side to rental houses.
Sure.
And we'll talk to a rental house and they kind of talk for a need of what they're looking for. The famous Cartoni Dutch head from the 90s came out of that. Claremont camera said, hey, make a head that rocks left to right. 3 weeks later, we had one at NAB and they were out on every feature after that.
Wow. So you're a piece of the R&D department, because I would have thought, and maybe it's just my experience, but a lot of manufacturers seem to be closed-minded. We know what we're doing, we don't need your help, and you're telling me that it seems to be the opposite with the companies that you're working with.
Some companies are very closed-minded. They don't want to hear what you have to say. They believe they're the right way. And if we work with companies like that, it's very rarely we do, because we need to have input on what's going on.
Sure.
This is 40% of the market is the U.S. market. So yeah, you may be right in what you're saying, but the bottom line is, if they don't agree with you, they're not going to buy it.
Yeah.
Cartoni is fantastic for working with me and we work together. It's a family, it's a team. Kinotechnic, my lighting guys,
Right.
they come out and they make the rounds with me to the TV stations, to their dealers, to the production houses, rental houses. Use our knowledge to learn.
That's tremendous. Now, John, I was going to ask you about Hitachi R&D, and obviously you guys have been leading the way in a lot of areas. 8K was one. I want to go down a couple paths with you.
Okay.
One of them is some of the additional technology. So you mentioned HDR, and I want to go down that path with you a little
Okay.
bit as well. But dovetailing off what we were able to talk with Steve about ever so briefly, and that is the R&D process. What does that look like? Is it, how do things get developed? What influence does the Hitachi customer have in future project plans?
Well, Hitachi is a global company, of course, and so they take input from all of the divisions around the world, the U.S. being a major one, but we also have a presence in the U.K., Europe, Asia. We have a facility in Turkey that's building OB vans, and so input is taken from around the world and delivered to the factory engineers. I am very impressed with our factory engineers who gather this information and respond to it. We get updates on roadmap plans for new products, and they deliver those products on time when we need them.
Well, that's tremendous. Now, one of the things that we've been talking about, and everybody loves this, is the 8K camera. And I'm curious, we see 8K being craved by the professionals because of what you can do with it. How soon do you think we'll see 8K delivered in-home for people watching?
Yeah, I tell you, Larry, I don't see that happening in the foreseeable future. We're talking about a data rate of 40 gigabits per second.
Wow.
It's a massive amount of data that has to be transmitted and stored. I see 8K being used, at least in the beginning, as a mastering format. Obviously, NHK is planning to broadcast 8K at the Tokyo Games.
Sure.
And will. They'll also be testing workflow at the upcoming games. So they plan on broadcasting. In the United States, currently, broadcasters cannot handle that kind of data rate,
Right.
even with the very good compression that is available today. For the time being, 8K will be mastered and then will be down converted to 4K for delivery to consumers. And for that matter, to HD as well.
Sure. Now, you mentioned a couple of other technologies, HDR, WCG. Would you dig a little deeper into that and include HFR and tell me how that plays in the 8K?
Yeah. Larry, this is sort of my hot button here at the show.
Good.
We are showing high dynamic range in our 4K and our 8K camera. We're also showing wide color gamut in the 8K camera. High dynamic range has many proponents right now, and that's the problem. Everyone who makes a camera has a way that they'd like to see high dynamic range. The display manufacturers have a different slant on high dynamic range, and then the consumers are going off on their own, consumer electronics are going off on their own with their version of high dynamic range. Currently, there are about 7 major different high dynamic range proponents.
In video. And
In
then
video.
with still, there are exponentially more.
Yes, right. Right now, Dolby Vision, PQ, perceptual quantization, and SMPTE 2084 are all the same thing, seems to be leading the charge. A more conservative high dynamic range is being advanced by BBC and NHK called hybrid log gamma. It's somewhat more compatible with current television sets. The gamma curve that we use today was established in the 1930s with the characteristics of CRTs.
Wow.
So a CRT had a nonlinear curve.
Right.
What we had to do with cameras was create an inverse of that curve so that in the end it was linear. That was established and standardized in 2011. That is 80 years later, it was established as ITU 709, which is what normal television uses today. I hope that it doesn't take that long to standardize high dynamic range.
My hope is with you as well. So that is kind of an interesting take on it, because I have been to a number of booths where they say we are delivering high dynamic range.
Yes.
And it doesn't always mean the same thing.
That's right. And I have traveled all around the NAB looking at what I'll have to call versions of high dynamic range. Some are spectacular.
Yes.
And some are,
Well, those are the ones we call HD, are you kidding me?
Yes, yes. Or some of the consumer companies are calling that extended dynamic range.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a term I've heard. John, with respect, because we are talking about R&D and development, how has your company, obviously you have started the company yourself and you have some great people. How do you guys do your R&D? How much comes from the consumer? How much comes from the brilliant minds of your developers?
Well, of course, it's a split. We do have brilliant engineers. We're always firing engineers around, but the whole product is about R&D. I mean, that's it. It's not about just developing one product and then selling it for 5 years. It doesn't work like that. But I think we get all of our feedback, all of our ideas come from our customers.
Okay.
Everyone would say that, but it is true. You know the things you need to develop because customers tell you that works and that doesn't work. And it's an interesting thing within the company. We're constantly giving ideas from engineers, and it is a great idea, but then we have to measure that against what the customers are asking. So if you go and present something to a customer and they go, yeah, looks good, but would I really use it? We won't do it because it doesn't make sense. Just because it's a cool idea, it doesn't make sense just to put that out there for no reason. And that's a friction. I mean, there is some friction there. You get developers, they get really cool ideas, they can see how it's going to change the world, but actually, if the customers are not asking for that, if it isn't going to deliver what they think it is, then it's frankly a waste of money.
Do you find that you need to educate customers at all? Because I see products come to market sometimes that the customers just don't even understand. They don't know they need it yet.
Yeah, and that's definitely part of it. I mean, it's an interesting. If you talk about robotic control, a few years ago, a decade ago, or even more, most of the demos we would be doing at a show like this, you were explaining what was robotics, why you needed robotics, what the cost benefits were. To us it was obvious, but people needed convincing. They needed convincing that it was cost effective, but they needed convincing that they could continue to make the programs they've always made with the same quality. And that was what you were doing. Now that conversation doesn't happen. Everybody pretty much gets the concept. They know that robotics can do the job. They know they need robotics, and then it comes down to, okay, what's good about this one, what's good about that one? And we definitely see that. I mean, the kind of demos you do now are very different to the ones we were doing just 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, when it was a really deep, technical, how does this work? It's not like that now. It's, okay, what are the features? How can that continue to do what you say? And we've got some really nice features, which, we love it. We call them the wow features, when people just come to a demo, and of course, the whole demo goes great, but there'll be 2 or 3 features where they go, wow, that's really clever. I never thought about that before. That's really clever. And
Yeah.
those are the payback. That's great.
Do some of those surprise you, that the customers are wowed? You're coming into a show like NAB and you think, I'm going to talk about this, this, and this, and all of a sudden you find all your time is being spent on something.
Sometimes it is surprising. I mean, you hope as you come in, you know you know what it is they're going to wow about, and you pretty much do. But occasionally, what happens is you're talking to somebody who's perhaps got a different idea, different kind of application.
Sure.
You might not even have considered that. And suddenly you think, actually, that is a very good idea. And maybe with a little tweak of a feature or an adjustment, suddenly your product becomes a whole new thing in a whole different area.
I think that's
and that
a great,
happens at shows. We love that. I mean,
that's a great point. I have been a gear reviewer for a lot of years.
Right.
And I find that certain things were very interesting to me, and then I'd put out these reviews, and the industry experts would look at it, or actually the manufacturers would look at it and go, why is Larry so excited about that? We
Yeah.
don't get, and it was something, and then my excitement about those things would carry over to the final audience,
Yeah.
and then people
Yeah.
would go, okay, there's something to this. So I think we're all surprised from time to time about things that are that are the popular things at our booth. So we have just a few minutes left, under 10 minutes, and now I'm going to ask you gentlemen for a little bit of future predicting. What do you see coming? And I don't care if we talk about where you're in your own wheelhouse, or what do you see for the bigger industry? Do you see, I see a lot of things from my perspective where a lot of people who are non-traditional broadcasters are now entering the fray. And traditional broadcasters some are saying, okay, we got to deal with this. And some are thumbing their nose at these new kids and saying they don't know what they're doing, but the new kids are getting eyeballs. They're getting that kind of traction. So that's my take on some of what's going on here at NAB. So Steve, what do you think are some of the things you see coming in your area or others?
Right now in camera support, we're seeing, which is kind of not the best news for us. Yeah, you know, camera support is becoming smaller, lighter, cheaper.
Sure.
And it's tough for us to kind of keep up with other markets. But what I'm seeing is a big rush, people using handheld gimbal type products where they're running and gunning the shooting. They don't have time to go set up a camera on a tripod in New York City and do the shot. They're I call it guerrilla shooting. You know, they come out there, they do their scenes, and then they run off to another scene. And I think that's obviously the explosion of Hulu, Netflix, and obviously YouTube, people having their own channels and followings. And so for us, that's the biggest trend I see is more handheld gears, smaller, lighter handheld accessories.
If you happen to know on that path, if you happen to know of any petitions against shaky filming, I would be happy to sign those. Holy cow, I hate that. It's just, you see it so much. I hope they're not listening. You guys, if the broadcasters, if the camera operator professionals that are part of these very popular television shows are watching right now, I'm not talking about you specifically. I love you. But I hate that shaky stuff.
Well, it's not real. You know, the whole idea of the NYPD Blue look, when it really came to that handheld look.
Right.
When you move your head, the whole scene doesn't move up and down.
Right.
You know, so Steadicam, Garrett Brown, you know, explains the best. You want that movement, but you don't want the bounce.
Exactly.
The bounce takes away from the actual scene.
It does. It does. So should then we all be using 8K to resolve this and move within the frame?
I don't know about 8K, but I would like to add to what Steven said, which is the only thing in my mind worse than the cinema verite bouncy jiggly video is audio that sounds like it's 20 feet away.
Yes.
How many YouTubes have you watched where they have paid no attention to audio whatsoever? It's just ambient in the room.
Well, I've watched
barely
the first
understand.
20 seconds of hundreds of those.
Yes.
But that's about it.
Yes.
People won't put up with that bad audio, so you're exactly right.
Yeah.
And rolling shutter to a lesser degree is annoying to us. And the things that we as professionals spot, a lot of the end users aren't seeing. So that is kind of interesting. But to continue with the future projections, if you don't mind.
One of the areas that I'm focused on at Hitachi is sports mobile, sports venues.
Sure.
And there's a lot going on there. First, there is an insatiable demand for sports. It never ends. Once you have established the major sports, the demand moves into what I'll call college Olympic sports.
Sure.
That are a little off the major sport path. The need to cover these sports is there, but they have to be covered at a much less expensive point than you would do Monday Night Football. And to that end, we're seeing a trend toward what ESPN calls REMI, remote integration, and that is, in many cases, only the camera operators are on site at the venue.
Right.
And sometimes not even them, with remote cameras. I mean,
that's possible. Yeah. Sometimes the announcers are not at the venue. They're simply watching the monitors and the cameras and talking about the game. Graphics and switching is done remotely at the control point. So that's a significant trend that is going on that will bring more smaller sports to consumers.
I think it sounds like an interesting trend. I would hate to be a sportscaster who loves to go to the game and you don't get to go anymore.
Yes, that's right. And it can't be as easy for a sportscaster covering an event from 100 miles away.
Exactly.
Or overseas. You know,
yeah.
BN Sports and a lot of these soccer channels, they're broadcasting from Spain and other countries.
Right.
And the sportscaster is sitting in the studio in LA.
Yeah.
And you don't get the excitement from him either.
No, and there's that just little bit of delay. We have under a minute left, James. I want to throw to you because I did not get to you in this part of the conversation.
That's right.
But I would like to invite you each to tell everybody where they can find out more about you and your company. So
Okay.
James, would you start that?
Well, obviously here at the show, you can come to the booth for that Shotacue. That's C8008. Online, it's shotacue.tv. And on there, you can find the whole range of manual systems, VR tracking systems, and robotics as well.
John?
Our booth is right over there.
So let's go.
As you come in the central hall, it's right at the beginning of the hall. It's a great location, and we've had a great deal of interest in our products because you can't get into the South Hall with the central hall without walking past our booth.
Very good. Almost out of time, Steve.
Okay. We're right by Atomos, C9039, and it's Manios, M-A-N-I-O-S. Digital.com is our website for all the lines we carry.
Steve Manios, John Humphrey, James Ettershaw, thank you gentlemen so much for a great show talking about gadgets and gear and camera support systems, robotics, all kinds of stuff. We're having so much fun at NAB Show Live. You should be here. We're going to be on the show floor, and we're going to be back here in just a few minutes.